Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and since 2010, I have interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of songwriters about the writing process. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So I've always been interested in treating songwriters the same way that we treat poets and traditional prose writers, as writers, plain and simple. There is no talk of how bands get their name, favorite tour stories, favorite foods, band drama, or anything else. This is an intelligent conversation about the writing process between two writers as we go deep, deep, deep into the writing process. That's it, nothing else. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the podcast, it's Hewson and Josh Jenkinson from Inhaler. Inhaler's new album is called Open Wide. Yes, let's get this out of the way now. Now, Hewson is Bono's son, Bono from U2. We don't really talk about that on the podcast, thankfully, probably for him. But there is one funny story, and that is that Eli still lives at home with his parents, and he likes to write all night and then go to bed in the morning when most people are probably waking up. His father now is the opposite. His father, sleeps when most people do and wakes up early in the morning to write. So at some point early in that morning, they are crossing paths. Eli is going to bed after writing, and his father is waking up and starting to write. So one of the things that I loved about this conversation is I'm hearing a lot from artists about they recognize the danger that the internet and phones have on creativity. And I'm hearing that a lot from people, and it's interesting that it's happening, especially hearing it from artists in their 20s. It's almost this revolt. And one of them mentions the erosion, they call it the erosion of boredom, and that when you don't feel uncomfortable, it's hard to write. And if you're always on your phone, you're always looking at things, you're not aware of your environment, you're not engaging, you're not bored. And we talked about the importance of boredom to the process. And again, that feeling uncomfortable is the key to creativity. I'm hearing a lot of that now from young songwriters. It's almost this, like I said, this revolt of, hey, we need to get off of our phones. We've got to stay bored. And that's the key to creativity. So I love that they talk about that a lot and they recognize that. I also love to do podcasts where I hear something I've never heard before. And this is the first, I believe, reference I've ever heard to the Rubik's Cube. They both like to do the Rubik's Cube, and I could never do it, could never solve it when I was growing up. But they love to do the Rubik's Cube, and one of them, I think it's Josh, said that he's so good at it that it almost becomes mechanical. And ironically, like if I'm doing the Rubik's Cube, all I'm thinking about is solving this thing. But if you get good at it, it becomes mechanical. And ironically, it becomes a place where you can think about songs, about songwriting while you're doing it. I could never do that, but I love that idea of doing something else that seemingly requires a lot of thought that almost becomes so rote that you can get into a creative space. And lastly, I think Eli says they are introverts who write anthemic pop songs, which is, he said, it's weird that we do that. And they both discuss the difficulty, I think, of writing. Josh says that he can write anywhere below neutral. And in other words, from an emotional state, we talked about the ideal emotional states that they both tend to write from. And it doesn't sound like happiness or euphoria is a place that either of them feel comfortable writing from. So again, the album is called Open Wide by Inhaler. Eli Hewson and Josh Jenkinson, welcome to the podcast. Josh, we'll start with you because you're on the left side of my screen. So how important is it for you to create every day? Do you think it's important to create in some fashion, even if it means forcing it? Or do you feel like forcing it makes things derivative if it's not really happening?
I think, to be honest, I think forcing it, as you said, if something's not going to come out of you naturally, obviously you can put work into your craft and stuff like that, and you have to put in the hours to, you have to find inspiration, but sometimes you can look for inspiration, but it might just be shite. You know what I mean? Like, and if it's shite, then you're gonna make shite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's better to make something than nothing. So
I don't know if we've ever made something. I mean, maybe we have made something good in a bad mood,
and I don't think we have though. Yeah, I don't like.
Or maybe like because we've had days where we've been frustrated.
Yeah,
making things, and then you give it one more shot, and you go back into the room, and something beautiful will happen.
Yeah.
Out of that, but yeah, I don't know.
But I think you're right. Like the stuff, I can only think of like a handful of stuff that we've ever probably even put out that would have been made in like a situation where we're not feeling actually inspired and we're really working for it. I don't think we can look at it fondly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think it's the stuff where it's genuinely coming out of you and you genuinely feel ready to make something.
Yeah. One thing I will say about us as well is, we've had a pretty amazing roster of people on this podcast. We are absolute amateurs.
Yeah, exactly. yeah.
So
we're even on this. So
go easy on us.
No. Hey, listen, I mean, I could, tell you stories about the songwriters who tell me that, those who have been around for like 40, 50 years, those are the people who do say you got to write the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. Like what you don't want to do is you don't want to say it's not happening. Those people always say push through it, regardless of how bad it is.
Yeah, I think finishing is like a completely different skill to starting.
Yeah. We're very good at starting.
We're so good at starting.
We're not good at finishing though.
World champions. But yeah, finishing, I don't know if it's just a different part of the brain. People talk about the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain being two completely different muscles. And it's definitely something that, it's discipline, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess, Eli, I mean, when you're, when you're writing something and it's not happening, like when do you know? I guess this is a two-part question. When do you know to say I've got to stop? And then do you stop with the intention of setting it aside but coming back to it later on? Like, I'm going to work on this later, or do you just say it's not happening, I'm just going to bury this?
I personally, I have a extremely kind of OCD approach to it where I can't put it down until I've beaten it to death, and that might be unhealthy, but I'll put something down for like, start something maybe for like a couple hours and then overwork it, and then I'll go, okay, I'll put that down now, but I'll come back like 10 minutes later and keep trying. And usually those songs are the ones that kind of always don't feel 100% there. Like our favorite songs that we've done together have been like the ones that just happen without you thinking about it. But which is strange. They just like the lyric is there and you have the idea for the chorus and you've got the punchline or whatever it is. And when I feel like overthinking it kind of does bring the joy out of it for me anyway. Even though I still hammer away at it anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah.
So Josh, do you do any type of writing outside of songwriting? I mean, journal writing, dabble in any other type of words?
Well, it's funny, we were talking about journaling today. One of us suggested we should all start doing it.
Yeah.
But no, it's weird. I've got like a weird relationship with actually, the action of writing. Like even during school, I always had weird handwriting, so the teachers would always make me like do extra like lines. Yeah. I'd use the pen in a weird way. Anyway, sorry, that aside. No, I do not, but I like typing in my notes a lot. I take notes about everything, about stuff I see or, stuff that's happened throughout the day, but then also just things I want to do and ideas and stuff like that.
You're a very organized brain.
I try.
Well, yeah, you try at least. Yeah. There's it's an interesting thing going on here for sure between the both of us.
Yeah, I'm like a good cleaner. I'm a very good cleaner up of things.
Yeah.
So Josh, my follow-up to that is because most songwriters will tell me they have, thousands of ideas in their notes app, but no organization at all to them. So when they go back to find those ideas, it's like frantically flipping through. Where is that thing from 6 months ago? So all those notes, are they organized in any fashion?
Oh, it would be, with us, that would be the equivalent of our voice memos. Like all of us as a group like that would be our, that would be our form of journaling, I guess. Is just anything that's happening, we get our voice notes app, and I'd be looking through there sometimes on like a flight when you've got no internet and stuff, and going through them and going.
But you don't label them in any way, though. There's no labeling of them.
Oh, hell no. That's I like with the voice note, it's like it might be something that I'm looking at while I'm playing the guitar, or something I'm humming or whatever. It makes no sense at all, but it makes sense to me.
The only thing it'd be or in ordering is date.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And that does it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about, so Eli, do you do any type of writing outside of songwriting or no?
Yeah, sometimes sometimes if I'm feeling like struck by something, I'll write like a couple paragraphs, like prose, I guess. This is very rare. But songwriting would definitely be the main, meat and potatoes of what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we're not kind of, I wish we kind of were a little bit more knowledgeable of like great literature and stuff, but we came out of a pure place of just wanting to write music and figuring it out from the bottom up. I think now we're definitely kind of realizing the power of that.
Yeah.
And especially when you're kind of searching for something to talk about, it's very, very important. But yeah, we came out of a place of complete ignorance, and trying to we just wanted to be in a band.
It's true, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a slight diversion then. Speaking of literature, there is a long list of Irish writers, poets, people like Yeats, who talk about writing by the sea. And the importance of the water, and something about being next to the water that invokes something in them that writing any other place wouldn't do. I mean, that there's a long line of Irish poets, novelists, you name it. And I think if I'm correct, you wrote part of this album, right? Or part or all of it, near the water. So I'd love to know what impact you think that really had, like what difference that made to the process.
It's a great question, because we have talked about how important it's been. I don't know, like if I was to be sort of pretentious about it, I would say it's something to do with staring out into infinity and not feeling shut off. Like, I think that's the other thing we always talk about as well, as windows in a place where you're writing, because we've worked in studios before where there's no windows, and that it can feel like very like you're being choked.
It's so
yeah. And I think, that would be it really. I think, what's our favorite time of day when we're writing? It's usually like
around
that
here,
dusk.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. Like you're staring out at the sea. And sometimes where we write as well, the kind of the sky blends with the water into like one color. So you can't really tell where the end of it is. And that's pretty amazing to write in.
Yeah. I love it because like I just thought of this now, but when I'm in our rehearsal space, that's like a very tangible place. Like I can see everything around it. And then for some reason, like where we live, it feels like it's to the left, and then the sea is to the right, and it's like possibilities out there. You know what I mean? Like you take the inspiration from there, you bring it into the rehearsal space, and then you go home at the end. I don't know. It's just like, I feel like it's a crossroads between like possibility and then just like actual reality.
Stairway to heaven.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, I think, and if I'm walking along the beach or if I'm hiking around a large expanse of openness, I mean, there's an awareness of existence. It's hard to describe, but there's an awareness of being alive.
Yeah.
That you have when you're surrounded by nothing, whether it's the sea. I mean, that's the way I see it, because I feel that same way. It's if you're surrounded by chaos, then you're not you're so aware of your surroundings. But when you're in an open space, that can be a profound place to write from, because you're aware of your being.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an awareness of like your unimportance, because it's so vast. You feel so small. Maybe that one makes you want to, I don't know, make some more noise.
Yeah.
Say something. But yeah, it's funny. Like they always say, like, because like most of our favorite bands anyway are like, from Ireland or the UK, and they say the music's good because the weather's so bad. And I think that might be true, possibly. I don't know. Even, like, because we were big fans of the Seattle grunge scene and everything.
Yeah.
And
Some bad weather.
they say that the weather's quite similar to Ireland.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for everyone who says that, there's the people in California who will say there's something about the sun that just gives you a different emotional space. But that leads me to a question I was going to ask, and is there an ideal emotion? I mean, I think you had talked about capturing the feeling, I think is the quote I saw in the press materials, that Kid Harpoon told you the mantra was to capture the feeling. So I'd love to, is there an ideal emotion when you tend to get your best writing done?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we like, I mean, you speak about the Beach Boys and California and stuff. I think, well, I learned something very interesting from reading about Brian Wilson, which is that he thinks that the subconscious is actually what's writing. And a lot of what we talked about on this album was just following the gut and letting that inform the emotion, and not trying to write for an environment, not trying to write for stage or write for, some genre or something like that. So I think we always, weirdly, because we're quite introverted people, we always write very anthemic pop songs, which is like, we don't understand why we do it. Like, we would love to be like cool, like indie rock band, screaming, like talking over the music. But this is just where we found ourselves. And I think it's actually, I think we're really proud of that, actually. But yeah, I don't know why our gut just wants to go there. Maybe we just
it's weird.
Have an insane, need to be recognized or something.
Okay, but okay. So my follow up is this: is writing? Is it easy to write from if you're sad, if you're extreme melancholy? Or some people find that there's a limit to that if they're so sad, they can't write in those spaces. And then other people say that the extreme happiness is a hard place to write from too. So maybe another way to ask that is, have you ever thought about when you get like the urge to write? Like, I've got to write this. I feel like I need to be writing now. Yeah, Josh, we'll start with you. But have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I tend to create when I'm like, if in the middle's like, just neutral, anywhere below neutral. That's when I get the urge to go.
That's great. I love that. Anywhere below neutral.
Anywhere below. I don't think I've ever created anything when I'm happy, except for like.
Really?
Yeah, which is really weird.
Yeah.
But I think with the stuff I end up making, like whether, melody wise and stuff, is quite happy anyway. I think if I was in a happy space, it would just be like so bad. Maybe you wouldn't listen. You'd be like, that's too happy. Like what's going on? Whereas I think I always come from like sadness or just like midway. Like I'm all right today.
Yeah.
So do you feel like when you're sad, is that a response to say, I need to write to get out of this space?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's like I just need to get myself up and do something, you know what I mean? And feel accomplished or feel like, okay, I've made a positive impact today in my own life. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting. I've never thought of that before, but that is neutral or below. But especially if I love the way you put that, but I love that idea that I take it out of that space, that headspace, creating will elevate me.
Yeah. But also sometimes like it's a nice way for me to also just deal with how I'm feeling in that moment and like be present in it instead of just being like, okay, I feel really bad today. I'll distract myself. It's like I don't distract myself by playing music. It's like actually analyzing it and like, why do I feel this way or whatever? So that's what I use it for.
I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
See, these are like therapy sessions. These are part podcast, part therapy session. And I love when, by the way, I do love when I interview more than one person and the one person says to the other, really? I didn't know that. So yeah, Eli, how about you? I mean, is there that ideal, is there an ideal emotion?
Sadness. I don't know. It's true though. I think, yeah, I've when I'm happy, I don't feel I need to create. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
I'm the same, but like, I've always thought it was like really difficult to write like happy songs, you know, that like that emotion has not come natural to me. I think it's easier to like be in your feelings and really like, you know, but I think, joy as an act of defiance, I think is what we're kind of like, we love that idea. And yeah, I've never like always, it's funny you said that because now I'm feeling like we have the same kind of thoughts on that. But yeah, like I think when we create happy music, or if we're happy making music, we have a tendency not to, that's when our not finishing comes in because we can just get distracted. And, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, yeah.
So all those, I think I didn't touch on this earlier with the follow-up, but all those discarded, I'm sure you have discarded song ideas, many of them. And when you find that things aren't happening, do you go back to those?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're good recyclers.
We're very good recyclers, yeah. I think that's one thing that I really like about, like, and again, I'm a symptom of my generation here, but like using notes is that I have like all our notes going back to 2013 when we were like 13 years old doing stuff. And like some of it really makes you cringe. But it's interesting to kind of be able to touch on where you were. And even like hearing demos that we've had for years that we were maybe sick of at the time going back. I think time is like a great kind of it pulls the it kind of pulls the cloak off really, and like you can really see actually what it is. So yeah, we do that all the time. There's a lot of our second album was stuff that didn't make it onto the first.
Yeah.
The third album is a lot more new, fresh.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great resource to have.
Are you ever mixing and matching melodies with lyrics? You know, a discarded lyric here matches with a melody over here.
Rob is our bass player. He's really good at that. I wouldn't be so good at that.
Yeah,
myself.
I tend to make something new.
Yeah. I just discard, go again. But he's really good at saying, "Oh no, this idea will really work with this."
Yeah,
that's like also a really important skill, and I wish I had.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I kind of like I end that possibility. I don't even think about it. You know what I mean? Like I tend to just be like, "Oh no, we'll just make something new for that instead." But, yeah, it is actually good. I wish I could do that too.
So you had talked about trusting your gut also, and those songs that happen quickly, again, I find that songwriters tend to fall into two camps. Those who, when they trust their gut and those songs happen immediately, they don't touch them. They don't revise them. There's a reason why they happened in 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not going to touch it. And there are those that say, that almost are skeptical of that. Like, this happened too easy, and they're worried about that. So I'd love to know where both of you stand on that. Those songs that do happen fast, are you less likely to touch them and go back and revise them in any fashion? Josh, we'll start with you.
I think we're definitely less likely to. However, as a band, like, we will always look over stuff a million times, like each of us. You know what I mean? It's like, it's something we all love doing. But I think you're right. Like, if it happened really fast, we're more likely to understand that there's like maybe a magic we will not recreate if we work it to death. So I think we respect them a bit more, and don't try and overkill it. But that would be my take anyway.
I have that really bad because I'll still go back and listen to like the first demo or something when the album's done and be like, I love that.
Yeah, but that's good. You know what I mean? And they worked so well on this album, pulling so many things, like reevaluating what we've made it. You know what I mean?
But yeah, it's also unhealthy because you fall in love with like, a certain sound of things rather than maybe the actual structure of the song or the lyrics. And I find it hard to tell where it starts and ends sometimes. Yeah.
And I think also, I mean, I know when Mark and I were writing the book, and I could have revised those chapters endlessly, but at some point you've got to say, that has to go to the publisher. I actually have to send this. And I tried to think about, like, when do I know when those things are done? There's always that moment of, when do I actually know that, okay, this is, I can't touch this anymore. And the best I could come up with was, if I made this change, would anyone know the difference? If no one would notice, then it's probably fine. But you
But
have to.
How do you know?
How do you know?
I know, right? Right. How do you know?
Yeah.
But that's the best I could come up with was, I could change this phrase, but no one's going to notice that.
It's a really good one, I think.
It is great. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. We use deadlines. That's our, and that's not by our choice. That's everyone else around us being like, what are you doing, lads? Come on, you gotta finish this.
We don't. We don't have the luxury really to be spending 5 years on an album.
Yeah.
And
which is good.
It is good.
What I mean? 'Cause
I think maybe not having a deadline is maybe that's the destruction of creativity. I don't know. I think yeah.
No, you see, that's the flip side to that, though, is that, I mean, when COVID first happened, I think the instinct was, everyone said, oh my gosh, I mean, songwriters, you'll be able to write album after album. You've got nothing else to do. And then it was this thought of, oh my gosh, there's nothing else to do. And when you don't have that deadline, like, I write really well under deadline. I need a deadline. I need my wife to say, we're leaving in an hour. You've got to get this thing done. But if you had said to me, you've got 5 days to do this, I don't like that. I need that deadline. So it sounds like both of you, I mean, Josh, you find the deadlines. If I gave you a deadline, you'd probably be more prolific than if I didn't.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. However, we might not finish on the deadline. That's one thing we're great at. But at least it's there. And that's, it's like, it's an incentive to it puts, the end at the end of a line, you know what I mean? And you can visualize it instead of it just being a free flowing infinite thing. But
there are some projects we have that, like, songs that are never ending, like that. We don't have deadlines because we're not putting them on an album, and you always end up sort of going back to your first draft of it. It's funny. Well,
I know that when I interview songwriters who have children, they are incredibly prolific because they are driven by, the kid's taking a nap now.
Oh wow,
I've got an hour. And I'm going to get stuff done, rather than, I've got an hour, I don't feel like writing. But if you only have an hour, you'll get a lot of stuff done that way.
Yeah.
Wow. That makes me feel terribly guilty. I need, like, it's funny, sometimes I will be we go back to what we were talking about initially, but sometimes I will feel like I'm in a terrible mood and I don't feel like writing. Not in a sad mood, but just in a mood of, like, I don't feel like I have anything to offer. And I need to be alone for, like, days sometimes. If there's pressure, like, sometimes I feel like, I like to feel like there's no pressure,
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe just at the beginnings of things, but when we're, so I don't know if I roll the same way, but that's gives me hope. Maybe one day, when we have kids, we can still write great songs.
So both of you, I think you said you wrote best at dusk, but have you ever been an early morning type of writer?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I think I'm more nocturnal than you, for sure.
Yeah.
Rob and I, our bass player, we have terrible sleeping habits where we live by nighttime, kind of. We'll wake up as late as possible, go to bed as late as possible. And I've kind of done that since I was a kid, because I used to get up in the middle of the night, apparently, like from like age 5. And my mum would come down, she'd see me just in front of the TV at like 3 a.m. by myself. And she was so confused by it, but I still love that when nobody's around and, like, you feel totally alone. I don't know why I feel I need that, but freedom, yeah, some sort of freedom, I guess. Yeah, always loved that.
Yeah, Josh, you the same way?
No, I just get to bed. Like I just go, all right, yeah, it's time to get to bed. No, I do love my own freedom, but
In different way.
in different ways, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because yeah, when Eli says that about himself, I'm like, that makes, you know, I can like visualize him doing it, completely understand him doing it. But I think once I'm asleep, I'm out. I'm off the
Ryan always says, like, don't you guys want to go to bed though?
So Eli, you're writing 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And I think it's the same reason why the songwriters who do get up early and write, it's for the same reason you said, is when you know that no one else, the world is asleep. And you know, and it's not just that you're not interrupted. It's not that. It's more that when no one, there's that silence.
Yeah.
And when you know, I'm the same way, although I get up in the morning, I've never been a late night person, but I'm so productive early in the morning because you feel like you've got a head start or just that there's no one else is around.
I mean, I'm looking forward to that day where it switches. I really, really am. But I think one thing about us is like we haven't moved out yet.
Yeah.
We all still live like at home with our parents. Because we started touring when we were 18. And it's just been nonstop really, apart from COVID. But so there's always people in our spaces. We don't have our own spaces to go to, you know. So it's like maybe that's why we've kept it up.
Yeah, that's why I did. Like, I'm middle of the day because if my mum's working from home, the mornings can't do it. It's like if she goes out for a walk or something, that's when I do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's like that's the space because I can't have anybody around.
Right, but Josh, you realize that's the deadline I was just talking about, right?
There we go. Yeah. That's true. Yeah,
that's true. Right. I mean,
at the end of the walk. Yeah,
right. She's gone. I've got 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. Damn, that is very true.
That's
I'm
actually
telling you.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
My dad says the same thing actually about it because oftentimes I'll be going to bed and he'll be getting up to write.
So he's an early. But was he a late night person earlier or no?
I think he maybe used to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he talks about the same thing. Yeah, about getting that space is really important.
So what about the role of Agatha Christie? I quote Agatha Christie in all my interviews because she said, the writer Agatha Christie said, the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. And what she means by that is that we get ideas when our brains are engaged in monotonous activities. So David Byrne said the best time to write is when you're driving. When your brains are engaged in an activity that requires no conscious thought, that's when the unconscious ideas bubble up. So things like, I've heard gardening, I've heard hoovering or vacuuming, I've heard cleaning, doing the dishes.
They all involve a lot of noise, it sounds like. Yeah. Interesting. Wow, I think you're onto something here.
Yeah,
I think you're onto something. It's not because, and I've heard, but I have heard like folding laundry. In other words, in your brains, and there's people that say that that's why boredom is the best place to write from. But there's something about the repetition of something, doing something repetition that requires no thought, then that's when the ideas happen. So I guess, Josh, we'll start with you. Do you find that to be, have you ever thought about that? Like the ideas are happening because they call those the eureka moments. And that's why they say we get our best ideas in the shower. It's the same reason. So Josh,
No, I think you're dead right on like when your brain's switched off. And one thing I have found, which is funny, is like there's sometimes where we're in a group together and our brains are switched off and an idea would come to one of us, but like it's hard to just be like, oh, sorry lads, can you shut up? I've got this, because it's just, you know what I mean? You don't want to be that person. It's like all eyes on me. But you always have to like sneak away to a room or something and get your notes app out. But one thing, just kind of boredom, because I completely agree, is like we as a generation and we, you know, all of us in our band, we're so distracted all of the time. Like we watch videos of like Led Zeppelin and like we are always like, how are they so good at playing? And other bands from like, you know, from the past. And our producer back in the day, and used to always just say like, because there was nothing else to do. You would be at home mastering your craft all of the time. And I know it's like an excuse, but like,
No, you don't.
you know, I'd be playing guitar. I love playing guitar. Whenever I have a chance, I've got it in my hand, but you get a notification and then you go on your phone and that's half an hour gone. You know what I mean? Like just in a blink of an eye.
It's a real curse.
It really is. And, you know, self-control is one thing, but just catches up on you. It really does.
So what I'm hearing you say is that because you're so distracted, the boredom thing doesn't really happen.
It still does, but not as much as I'd love it to. You know what I mean? Because I agree with you. That's when you do get ideas, and that's when it starts kicking in.
Yeah. I get that's the subconscious as well.
The subconscious, yeah.
It's the gut. Yeah.
Yeah, the quality stuff, the gut and the subconscious. Yeah.
But how about driving around? I mean, when you're driving, as long as you're driving in a familiar place and you don't need to worry about where you're going, that's why I hear from songwriters all the time. They get so many ideas when they're driving.
Yeah, you go into this sort of autopilot where your eyes are focused, but maybe your brain is elsewhere, which maybe isn't good when you're driving. but it definitely happens to everybody. So yeah, I've had loads of those moments, loads and loads and loads of them.
Damn, I need to get driving.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Josh is doing his driving test soon. Yeah.
But have you ever thought about that? Like you're getting ideas when you're doing something around the house, or I've heard cleaning or something like that, where it's just that's when the ideas happen. Like if you force it, it's not going to happen. But if you're doing something where you're not thinking about it, that's when it does.
100%. I don't know what it is. It's just like your kind of spirit is humming away.
That's good.
Yeah, definitely. And they're always the clearest thoughts, oddly, which has always baffled me. They're always often when I'm like staring at my notes or a page for too long, or it's harder to kind of think about or get a picture. Like a lot of the times when we start ideas, I'll sing nonsense, like just sounds. Like phonetic kind of the things that sound good, and make sense of it after. And it's funny because sometimes you make a lot more sense when you're not trying to make sense. I've found that for sure. A lot of times it's been actually really helpful and really guides me.
It's funny you had mentioned sounds. I think one of you mentioned sounds, but when I've interviewed a few drummers, and the drummers who say that they get ideas by when they're driving and if they're going over rough pavement and the bump. Dave Lombardo, the drummer for the band Slayer, he said he's gotten song ideas from listening to putting shoes in a dryer and hearing the sounds of the shoes. And I have heard those kind of things. I've heard turn signals, car alarms. I had Stu McKenzie from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard on, and he said car alarms are great. He said he just heard a car alarm or made him write a song.
Wow,
beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
We need to get Ryan out in the world.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. No problem there. Like famously, Jive Talk in the Bee Gees was one of those.
Covered Bridge.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Miami, right? Or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So you hit on something that I'm hearing from songwriters now, and that is that the awareness of the distraction, and that there seems to be a very small movement of getting away from that because they realize how the distractions are not good for creativity. And I had Robin Hitchcock on probably 10 years ago, and the songwriter, and he's in his 60s, I think. And he said social media, and this was 10 years ago, had destroyed his creativity because he physically could not stay off the phone. And so when you are, and I'm not, I don't mean to sound like an old man, but I think when you're not paying attention to your surroundings, that can be a problem. But it's interesting you say that because I am hearing like a small groundswell of, this is a problem. How can I be creative if I'm not aware of what's going on? I'm not listening to the conversations. When I'm at a restaurant, someone says something, I've got to be aware of that. Or I'm in a pub and I hear conversations, and when you're on your phone. So there seems to be a movement to kind of get away from that.
I think it's not just a huge problem for songwriters. I think it's a problem for humanity as a whole. Really, I think the erosion of boredom has a profound effect on creativity, and I think that's one of the things that makes us, different from animals, is opposable thumbs. Like the ability to create is life to me, and yeah, I'm really worried about our generation, and not even just our generation. Like my parents, loads of people, like everybody's got this addiction to, not feel uncomfortable, not feel like bored.
Yes, yeah.
And it's really, really scary. And imagine the amount of great songs that we've missed out on. If social media hadn't come about, like, what are we missing? It's very, very scary. And even just like hearing a lot of music these days, I've always noticed, like, with the internet, like the second the internet started happening, like there was like one uniform for the youth. Like everyone's wearing tracksuits, or like, you know what I mean, that like kind of North Face jackets and stuff. Like our kind of conscious is becoming one big blob. You know what I mean? There's no kind of individuality. It's strange because the internet's so big. You'd think it would broaden your horizons, but in a way, I feel like it's narrowed it a lot.
I love what you just said about, I think you said something about it, when those distractions are not allowing you to be uncomfortable. I think I'm going to paraphrase. You said something like that. But I love that idea that if you're not uncomfortable, how can you create?
I think, often if we're too comfortable, I don't think we make great stuff, maybe.
For sure. Because there's no reason to push forward. You know what I mean? Or there's no reason to make your situation better, or, solve a problem. Yeah. It's all about, or whether that be like an actual physical problem, or like just a riddle you have in your brain of like, oh, how could I make this song work? You know what I mean? And then figuring that out by trying to create it.
Yeah.
On a very practical level, Josh, I find that songwriters tell me, and I certainly do this as a writer, the role of movement. I get a lot of great ideas when I'm walking, when I'm hiking, when I'm running, when I'm biking. That tends to be a source of great creativity, practically moving. So, Josh, does that happen with you a lot?
Yeah, mainly hiking and walking. There would be the two spots where I'd be like, coming up with melodies or just drum patterns or something like that. It would come because you have, I feel like you're in a motion and it's rolling. So you're not focusing on your walk. You're not focusing on your steps. You're focusing on like making that pattern in your brain, or like, working out that riddle. You know what I mean? Like that's when I, go into a flow state of just being relaxed, because I'm just always so stressed normally. With everything else I do, I'm trying to like, hold it together. Whereas when I'm walking, I'm like, I can do this. I can put one foot in front of the other and not fall over a log.
Well, you're good at hiding your stress.
Thanks.
So, Josh, do you do that when you find that you're in a rut? Do you deliberately go out and move to get out of that?
Yeah, I would try. I definitely would try. It's either walking, or, as stupid as it sounds, picking up a guitar. Like, Eli would be able to tell you, I'm like annoying sometimes just holding like I'd just be playing the same song over and over and over again, but I'm not doing it to be like, oh, I'm playing this song, check it out. It's like just working out a pattern in my head.
Yeah.
Like, it's stupid to say this, but last year a few of us got into Rubik's cubes and it genuinely made my life good, because I could just fix problems all day. I wouldn't stop doing it, and it wasn't to accomplish making a Rubik's cube. It was to do the work of it.
It's also to occupy your brain while you're thinking about other things.
That kind of blew my mind, because I first of all, I was never able to solve a Rubik's cube. So let's get that out of the way. I could never do that, but I feel like that requires a lot of thought. I mean, you can't be bored when you're trying to solve a Rubik's cube. So Are you telling me that Rubik's Cubes are a place of creativity?
Kind of like,
Yeah.
it's once you get it a few times, this is sorry for going
No,
on
it's
a
actually
Rubik's
really
Cube.
interesting.
But once you get it a few times, then it becomes like driving or walking, and it's like you know the steps and you carry them out. So then once I'm doing something I'm comfortable with, then I can start thinking about other stuff.
Well, music is mathematical, isn't it?
Really,
So
yeah. To some
maybe
extent.
there's something to be said there.
Yeah.
I always like hearing things in interviews I've never heard before. And
Yeah.
I've certainly never heard Rubik's Cube mentioned.
I'm glad to offer you one of those.
I mean, those things were I could never solve them. So Eli, how about you? Do you get a lot of ideas when you're moving around?
Not so much, because I need to be still and alone to start. But if I'm looking for a lyric, if I put it down and I go and I watch a movie or like I'm playing a video game or something, or something, not movement, but just my brain is occupied, I can then, like, the words will just fit the melody all of a sudden, and I'll go, oh, there it is, but not movement doesn't inform it as much as just my brain being occupied. With different courses for different horses,
So let me ask you a very specific question. That is, when you're working things out on the guitar, are you sitting down? Are you standing up, or are you walking around? Because I've heard all three of those things, that some people, they've got to be walking around with that guitar. Others say, no, I've got to be sitting.
Weirdly, I have to be not too present,
right,
in my mind. It has to happen kind of without thinking about it too much. Because then I get bogged down in all sorts of, that's too like this, or that's not what we want to sound like, or, and you just kind of, let the moment take control. That's when I feel most creatively free and moving forward. Yeah. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm a sitter with the guitar. I don't think
yeah,
made anything standing.
Yeah.
Like, thinking of when we're in the studios and stuff, I'm always sitting down if we're making a lick or doing something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Standing up feels like you're about to show people something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sitting down feels like you're
it's your own thing.
Yeah.
You can keep it to yourself if you want to.
Sure. I like that. All right, 2 more questions. I've got a quote from a writer that I'd love to know. This is the quote that songwriters love, and I'd love to get your take on this. The writer is E.L. Doctorow, and he says, I'll repeat this. He says, writing is like driving at night in the fog. You can only see as far as the headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way.
Wow.
Isn't that great? I'll repeat that. It's so good. Writing is like driving at night in the fog. You can only see as far as the headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way. Wow. So how does that apply to you as songwriters? Do you need to see the end, or would you prefer not to?
Ooh, love that question. I don't know. I think, the headlights are as far as you need to see.
Yeah.
I think. But I don't know, you in your heart, you know where you're going sometimes. For me, I like to think like, I want to make this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And at least to have some sort of idea of where I'm going, otherwise I'll end up in the ditch on the side of the road a lot of times. But that would be me anyway.
Yeah, I think that I love the way that was said, because I think as a group, we all have like this great conscious, like all togetherness of knowing the potential in something. And like, it's very rare for one of us to drop off and get disinterested when we're either jamming or like a project's being put forward. I think we're all good at sticking together to get to that destination. Yeah. And I think you're right in saying like the fog, because you can see the next step, but you don't know how many steps it's going to take. You don't know, what the 4 steps down the line is going to be, but you still have that willingness to keep going.
Yeah.
See out the potential.
Well said.
And I like extending the metaphor as driving off into the ditch. I like that. That was
do that well.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. So, Do you get inspired by other types of art? I hear songwriters go to art galleries or movies or television shows or any other, whether it's reading or anything else. Hemingway famously said all writers should go to art galleries to get inspired. So I'd love to get each of your takes on that, on if other types of art inspire you.
I mean,
That's our main.
yeah, it's our main kind of source of like a group, like activity to get inspired when we go to like an exhibition or like a museum. I think it's one of the reasons we love New York as well.
Yeah.
Because we've spent a lot of time there recently. It's just endless visual kind of inspiration. But yeah, I think a picture can inform a sound very easily, like for me. I would say that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like what style of music you make. It's when I look at art, it's not the same as fashion, of course, but it's like that looks X, Y, and Z. I want to make something that makes me feel like that. That I want to feel like like I'm back in the 70s during the pop art era. You know what I mean? And it's the style of it.
Also, not like knowing like what you don't like. Is often like
that's the most important.
Where we start when we're thinking of making something. Like somebody once told me like it's sometimes it's more important to know what you don't like than what you do like. It sounds quite cynical, but I think it's actually quite practical and quite true.
Yeah.
So that as a group thing to do, like as a band, I think it's also important to be like, oh, we like that, but we don't like that, and why? And it's just good exercise to keep up.
When you go to art galleries, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a great way to understand each other and see where taste lie.
Yeah.
When
you go to art galleries, is it the art itself? Because I also hear like the titles of the paintings.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the titles of the paintings, like the colors oftentimes are massive. If anything, probably the biggest.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah.
And textures.
Yeah. I don't know why visual art and music are so entwined. Like this. Like one example I'd use is like the Rolling Stones. Like I was always a Beatles guy, and I'd heard the Stones' music, and I liked it, but I would always say the Beatles over the Stones. But once I saw Crossfire Hurricane when I was a bit younger and saw them and what they were dressed in, and I was like, oh my God, I get it. And I couldn't stop listening to them. And I think rock and roll especially is highly visual. And it's people, I don't think musicians kind of take advantage of that as much as they can,
And that's it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can find all the episodes on all major streaming platforms and also at the Songwriters on Process website. That is at songwritersonpodcast.com. Pre-2020, this was not a pod. I was transcribing all of the interviews. So you can find all of them, hundreds of them, many hundreds of them, on the Songwriters on Process website. You'll find both the transcribed interviews and the pod there. Take a deep dive, spend a day. These are great conversations with songwriters just about the writing process. Also, my book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, is out now worldwide on Hachette Books. You can find it online in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God, and it's his memoir. Again, that is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari. I am biased, but that's a damn good book. My email, ben@songwritersonprocess.com. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I love suggestions, questions, comments. People always email me and tell me who they want to see on the pod next. You never know. Send me an email, ben@songwritersonprocess.com. And that's it for me, everyone. Have a great day.